I'm Britton Clennett and welcome to China Insight, where we discuss the latest issues affecting this rapidly changing country. Well, the Rio Olympics is just around the corner, but which Chinese athletes will clinch gold for the nation? And are Chinese fans excited by the action on the track? Here to help me find out is sports commentator Dong Jun. Welcome to the program.
Great to be here again, Britton.
Look, 2008, Beijing held the Olympic Games. You were one of the commentators. What was that like?
Well, time really flies so fast. Back then, I was 8 years younger than I am now. It was really fascinating and so memorable, and most memorable in the Olympic history for the Games. And for myself, personally, it felt so special. It's different from any other experience that I had in my career reporting on sports, because for the first time, I felt I was contributing directly to the hosting of the Games, to putting together a big event, not only showing our hospitality to the entire world, but also our professional capability of doing this. Mm-hmm. And it finally came true. And just a few decades before 2008, China was very, very new to the Olympics.
Mm. Right, and speaking of sparking an interest in sports and the Olympics generally, of course, there was the Games in Athens in 2004 when you had Chinese hurdler Liu Xiang clinch gold. I mean, what was that like?
I wasn't in Athens back then. 4 years earlier, I was. I recall that I was watching the relay live on TV. That was already late nighttime in Beijing. I was sitting on my sofa and I expected him to win, but at the moment when he crossed the line, the final line, I still couldn't help bursting into tears. It was such a special moment that an Asian and a Chinese hurdler on a straight track could finish ahead of all the other best athletes in the world.
Okay, well, we're going to show you that very moment. Our following report begins with that clip. Let's show you.
This is how it all started.
It was on a track just like this one in 2004 when Chinese Olympic hurdler Liu Xiang clinched his Olympic gold medal, in many ways sparking an interest in athletics here for the very first time. But at the last Olympics in London, Liu crashed out and retired from the sport altogether. Now, with this new batch of homegrown talent, many Chinese are asking who will be their next big hopeful in Rio.
Chinese sports fans are used to the country's athletes dominating Olympic events like table tennis, badminton and diving. This time at the Rio Olympics, they're hoping to see prowess on the athletics track as well. And nothing has spurred that hope more than the Chinese sprint relay team's success at the IAAF World Championships last year.
确实，去年我们在北京世界锦标赛，拿到男子4×100米银牌，这里面确实是振奋人心。当时的场面，我们还是记忆犹新。
哇！比赛开始，我要选第8名告诉第9道，第9道，处理好1、2跑交接，1、2跑交接一定要非常完美，分道控制好，准备好，加油！国图1马当先，加油！第三，
然后没上跑道之前的话，真的是特别紧张的那种心情，因为是人生中的第一场这种大赛吧，算是。上了跑道的话，肯定整个人就感觉是什么都不用去想，那瞬间就是跑过去，就是懵的跑过去，就这样子。
那我们那个时候是进决赛了，那时候其实在想，哎，进决赛了，其实已经算是一个历史性的一个突破了，因为那个时候应该算是第一次在那么大型的比赛当中，就是中国队出现在决赛场上，还是短距离的竞争，所以当时我们心态还是很好，发挥出自己，表现出自己。当时可能大家状态也比较好，然后又是在自己家门口，现场气氛又特别好。
其实我跑过去，我跑第一棒每一位，我就可以看到队友跑，我看到他们发挥都不错，我觉得有些。
我那个角度我是看不到跑第几，因为刚刚好视线是挡住的。跑下来以后，我就听到船长在欢呼。
看到是张海萌第4棒嘛，他是冲到终点时候，那个位置就直着。刚刚看到张海萌是冲线的那瞬间，我都可以看到是第3名。
没想到是第3，其实那个时候很意外。然后后来绕了一圈以后，突然说美国队犯规了，第2。那个时候真的没有想到，就太意外了，就没想到会发挥的那么好。
It was a landmark moment for the 4 athletes. Suddenly, they were household names, idolized by 1.3 billion home fans. Several months before the Rio Games kick off, we spent time with the team in Shanghai. They'd just finished a training camp in the US, and this was to be their first appearance in China this year at the IAAF Diamond League Athletics Championship.
How do you describe the dynamic between your teammates?
一开始也是磨合的也蛮困难的。当大家其实跨过那道坎以后，其实就会交流起来，磨合起来会很方便。然后像我们现在的话，可能大家就是，都把彼此当成就是兄弟一样，或者是就是老朋友了，就是关系也比较随意了，就是有的时候互相开玩笑呀。
越南这个国家，
你看牙买加有美国，
没看到。
澳洲好几个巴哈马。
22-year-old Xie Zhenye is from Zhejiang province. He may be a little more camera shy than his teammates, but his talent as a 200-metre runner makes him a huge asset for the team. He won gold for China at the Youth Olympics in Singapore in 2010. The achievement was all the more remarkable considering that he'd missed a whole year of training due to a serious injury.
可能大家就是这么听的没什么感觉，但是一个人还是蛮难熬的吧。就是因为大家都在跑，然后你自己一个人在做恢复啊，或者是自己一个人在力量房里面，就是有的时候还是要靠自己意志力坚持下去的。可能也是凭着一股就是那股热血，那股冲劲头，就是想证明自己，就是说不是那么容易摔倒，就是爬不起来。
The second member of the team is Mo Youxue. At 20 years old, he's the youngest in the group. Mo comes from Guangdong province, and he says it's his family's support that has helped him through the tough times.
那时候我成绩不好的时候，也是差点就是被淘汰的那一种，所以说还是他们的鼓励下，让我一直，就算教练被骂我的时候，我说什么练那么差啊。 我也是就低着头也要坚持下去。
Among this group of Chinese athletes is Su Bingtian, who made history last year at an event in the US when he became the first Asian sprinter to finish the 100 metres in under 10 seconds. Then, at the World Championships in Beijing, he reached the final, finishing 9th. In that race, the 26-year-old from Guangdong province found himself chasing the world's fastest man, Usain Bolt.
他的一个基本动作比较好，另外一个，后来通过训练以后，我就觉得他一个很刻苦，这个小孩的思想，而且对专业的领悟啊，悟性很好。你说劣势吧，相对来讲，他就可能身高啊各方面就稍微差了一点，但是他从后天的用他的努力啊，也弥补了一下。另外他的爆发力还有那个频率是非常的好。
Another athlete who has now managed to break the 10-second barrier in the 100 metres is 29-year-old Zheng Peimeng. The Beijinger, a 200-metre specialist, won his preliminary race at the 2013 IAAF World Championships in Moscow in 10.04 seconds, equaling the national record at the time.
像我们黄种人呢，能够参加100米决赛，那真不容易，真的不容易。 其实可以说是梦想来的。
Winning the silver medal in Beijing last year shot the relay team to fame. They've been pursued by cameras and hordes of fans ever since. The moment they enter the athletics arena, they're the center of attention.
影响应该肯定是有啊，一个弄得好就是一个不断的鼓励他们，要不搞不好他们就会成为一种负担，我就觉得，特别有太多的外事，像今年也有受到一些就是训练上的影响了，我感觉到了。
其实我们也是感受到那么一点压力，因为大家的期待值明显跟以前不同了。以前可能说啊，你们进个决赛，拿个好名次，或者是怎么样，但是现在的话，可能他们说，哎，你们想拿个牌，可能甚至是说是要有颜色的。
One athlete who's familiar with that level of pressure is Liu Xiang. He won Olympic gold in 2004, but failed even to complete his races at the following 2 games. We caught up with a friend and former rival of Liu's, Aries Merritt. The American world record holder was very frank about the troubles Liu faced.
You know, Liu Xiang had a lot of pressure on him from the Chinese people. He's a Chinese hero, and so I feel like a lot of pressure, almost too much pressure, was put on him to perform very well at the Olympic Games. And he's a human being at the end of the day. You know, he's not a machine who can just come out and run and win all the time. Everyone has their ups and downs, and he showed that throughout his career. I've had my ups and downs. I've showed that through my career, and it's just part of the sport.
And Liu Xiang isn't China's only athlete who at times has been overwhelmed by the pressure and expectations. Liu, along with former tennis champion Li Na and ex-NBA star Yao Ming, were all recognized as pioneering national sports heroes. But with the adoration also came the pressure to perform. The relay team may not have reached such dizzy heights yet, but their goal is to get there.
我们还是在整体还是落后的。我们现在除了张培萌跟苏炳添一个在10秒，一个9秒99的，我们很多都停留在10秒4啊、10秒3左右，但是都比以前进步了很多。我们必须就是要更多的人能够达到10秒2啊、10秒1几啊，我们才是一个强大的短跑队伍。
虽然说获得那么好的成绩以后，我们还是很认清现实的，我们还是很理智的，所以还是想。就是稳定下来，然后慢慢提高。什么时候我们能真正的，就是全靠实力，毫无悬念的去站在领奖台上的时候，那个时候你再去想别的。
也就这样，应该你出了名嘛，别人才重视你。
其实有人关注你，有的时候还是会有比较兴奋的一种状态。总比没人关注你冷清来的好，所以我对我个人而言还是一种激励比较多。
So how far off are Chinese athletes from out-sprinting their top competitors?
那种差距就比较大了。他们身体素质，我讲的不是他力量、身体素质，他们整个人体型各方面，我们就是一个差距了。所以我们只有通过我们自己的刻苦训练，提高我们身体素质、力量素质去弥补这样的。
在短跑的技术当中，有学习到一些东西，但是我觉得更多的是一种态度，一种职业态度嘛，特别专业。人家就是当一个职业，当一个自己吃饭的一个职业在练，然后我们更多的是。有些时候思想没有太转变过来。
Most people agree that hosting the Olympics in Beijing in 2008 was a game changer for Chinese interest in sports generally. And in many ways, the rise of these new homegrown relay stars has reignited China's interest in track and field events, an area not traditionally viewed as the country's strong suit. That's why, ahead of the next Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, expectations are rising again.
what expectations do you have at the Rio Olympics for this group of Chinese athletes?
4x100米接力，跑100次100次不一样，所以你在决赛那一次行不行，现在都不知道。所以尽量我们在练好以后有很好的准备，我们去迎接这个比赛，我们争取完成我们自己预定的目标就是。预定的目标我们争取在38秒破38秒。
我们现在还是比较心平气和的，就是先进决赛，然后进决赛以后我们再去拼更好的一个成绩。
China's 1.3 billion people are now gearing up to see what their athletes can achieve at these Olympics. They're wondering, will the Games produce China's next sporting superstar?
So, who do you think we should keep an eye on at the Rio Games?
A number of them, because we have probably the largest delegation China's ever sent to an Olympics outside of Beijing, outside of China. So yeah, I think because China is one of the top contenders on the gold medal, on the medal table, then you do have more than a few double opportunities. But when you talk about who will attract more attention back home among the public, yeah, this team of sprinters, because of their silver medal finish at the World Championships, has already raised the public's expectations, or at least interest in them. And of course, China will not allow very easily, other competing countries to take gold away, from China, in ping pong, badminton, diving.
Right, those kind of sports you imagine, China will do well.
Yeah, China has been the superpower in those sports for many decades.
It's always dominated as long as I can remember.
Right.
Now, I'd like you to actually talk us through China's very unique sporting system, if you will, for people outside of China who might not know how it works.
Yeah, I think, it's unique because it really took the government's effort to help educate the public what international sports and the Olympics are about many decades ago. So it needs a relatively centralized system to train the elites or young people with potentials with a more centralized system to train them into professional or, medal-winning athletes before the public gradually embrace modern sports from the grassroots level. And then the development will become, the basis of the pyramid will grow by itself instead of, only relying on central government's investment in this. So that's what's special about China's system. And another uniqueness about this system is it goes almost parallel now with the marketized, system, with the public more and more generated by investment from the public instead of from the government, and especially when professional sports, not only in tennis or basketball or soccer, but even the IAAF World Track and Field,
as we saw in the report.
the series, and becoming more and more commercialized, and that really attract attention. Not from above, but from the ground.
Look, we mentioned Li Na in the report, and she was also, quite a controversial figure at one point because for going kind of against the system and wanting to claim the prize money that she earned for herself.
Yeah, I think for Li Na it was kind of mixed feelings. She was not, criticizing the system all the time. Sometimes she also expressed, gratitude or credit to what the system had done for her positively. But basically, Li Na relied on herself to develop into a great star, a successful athlete. I think we will see more stars like her in the future. Not necessarily in tennis, or Grand Slam winners, but in other sports, in other areas, we will have more personalities. I think China should be and will be open enough to allow such athletes and stars to be part of the sports community.
Now, staying with Li Na, she was also known for commenting on the pressure, that she kind of felt from the Chinese public. I just wonder whether you think that's different from any other countries.
Yeah, it can be different from most other countries because China just in recent decades developed from a very backward country into one of the largest economies in the world. And just within a couple of generations, people see one another developing or becoming rich in different stages. And then some people among the Chinese population are kind of jealous about some people like Li Na becoming very rich. And also, as well, Liu Xiang faces a similar pressure. So when they place a lot of tremendous pressure on Liu Xiang and Li Na, it was kind of reflection of, okay, you have made such a big money, and we deserve you pay us back all the time. Whenever you fail, we have the right to criticize you and condemn you because you have earned so much.
Where I'm from, we call that tall poppy syndrome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talking about the pressure that these athletes face, I wonder whether that comes hand in hand with an interest in sports as well, whether there's a link there.
I think it's becoming increasingly true now because these athletes, like the sprinters, the relay team, before the public places pressure on them, they have already developed pressure on themselves.
Right.
Because they bet on this opportunity not only once in 4 years, but probably once in their lifetime to become very successful. And that's a critical moment for them. And that's very true for almost all athletes because they bet that this is such a monumental moment for them to turn their life around. So I think the pressure is really there, and
it does seem like you have this institutionalized sports system, but I just wonder at the grassroots level how China's sports interest is going, whether there really is this movement to develop a sports culture, if you like.
Yeah, you may argue that, with the dream of becoming another Liu Xiang or Yao Ming, and more young kids will go to the basketball court or practice hurdling on the track.
Right.
But I don't think that really worked so effectively in China. I think a bigger factor was still in the up to the China's top leadership to reform the education system instead of the sports system, because there are disciplines or very straightforward regulations now being implemented in primary and middle schools that no kids can still stay in the classroom after 3:30. They have to practice sports, art, and also some interesting science lab work.
Everyone knows China is a strong, on the medal count, it performs very well every Olympics, but is it a strong sporting nation? Does it have that culture?
Yes, it's a very interesting topic going on, being debated in China for quite a while, because people also technically argue about how to really define it, because some people argue that China is already a big sporting nation, but not a very strong sporting nation. But in my personal view, I think China is already a strong sporting nation, not a big one, because China is strong by placing among the top 3 medal winners in the world during the Olympics. But in terms of, demographic popularity among Chinese people who practice sports on a regular basis, China remains very small in the world, in that sense.
It's interesting that you make this comparison between big and strong. Okay. We're going to take a short break, but more on China at the Rio Olympics after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to China Insight. Well, I've been speaking to sports commentator Dong Jun about China's hopes at the Rio Olympics. Well, how much do Chinese people really know about what goes on in the track and field? That's what we asked. Let's take a look.
你对田径场有什么样的了解？谁是你的可以说比较崇拜的运动员或者偶像？
博尔特，我只知道最强的那些人。
那中国的运动员你有了解吗？
苏炳添，有张培萌啊，
加特林，苏炳添。
你觉得你是从什么时候开始关注这个中国的田径呢
？08年奥运会。
我最早看田径的时候是伊辛巴耶娃跳那个撑杆跳高。 当然了，最后还是因为那个刘翔跑了110米栏，这样最后能够让我们，因为在刘翔跑08年的奥运会的时候，我是去现场看过那个刘翔的比赛了，很可惜他因伤退赛了嘛。
大家关注变多了，因为我觉得像我小时候好像大家都不怎么看田径，然后自从有了那种现象级人物，比如说110米栏刘翔，然后还有博尔特这种人物的出现过后，大家就算不会看全场，但是也会关注这某一个项目。
越来越多，我感觉到很多人过一起，然后在我们的内蒙黄河自治区就成立了很多田径协会，专门就跑步呀什么的都喜欢参加。
里约奥运会就要开始了，觉得他们会在里约奥运会上会拿到什么样的成绩吗？
我觉得他们也是应该是前8吧，差不多，有那个我感觉应该差不多。
我觉得其实金牌、银牌、铜牌不是最关键的，关键就是个人最好成绩 ，PB 能不能创造 PB， 能够夺得更好的 PB， 就是对自己的一个提高。
Are those the kind of answers you expected?
They are quite knowledgeable. Yeah, they are avid fans. Yeah, I think even when China were winning medals in badminton, ping pong, and diving, among the Chinese sports professionals, I mean those officials and coaches from the Ministry of Sports, they have built the basic consensus that China will not become a true strong sports nation before China can win more medals in track and field and swimming, because they think those two big sports are the real basis and foundation of all other sports. But that will take a much longer time, more than a couple of generations, for an Asian country like China to achieve the goal, beating the United States, beating the Europeans in the track and field and in swimming pool.
Nations that have quite a history in these sports. It's interesting that the emphasis is put on kind of, swimming and these other sports. Are they seen as more prominent?
I think it's interesting to find out that people in the West are probably more interested in some new sports or kind of alternative sports that they are relatively unfamiliar. But back here in China, after having already won medals in what they used to be good at, China's appetite actually is going in the opposite direction. The interest among the public in track and field and in swimming is actually increasing because they are no longer content about winning ping pong medals.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of natural that you look for the next bastion of hope, right? Yeah. Anything else you want to comment on how China might perform at the Rio Olympics?
I will follow the track and field team, especially the sprinters relay team, very closely, because it's such a technical sport, and with a lot of uncertainties, unpredictable sports, you have to make sure first that you don't make mistakes. And then when you're in the final, again, you need to make sure you don't make mistakes. And then wait and see what happens to the others.
Well, it's an exciting time, and I know that you've seen your fair share of Olympics and commentated. We'll be looking forward to hearing you commentate again during this Olympics.
Oh, I look forward to it.
Thank you very much for coming on the program, Dongjun.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you have any comments or questions, please email us at chinainsight@cctv.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Weibo, or WeChat. And we'll see you next time for more stories and discussion on China out of China. Goodbye.